Hello, everyone. So happy to have you here with us again today. So we have been working through the A to Z guide of the best-selling book, Become a Super Salesforce Consultant. I'm Shellen Brion, part of the Supermoms team, and Heather Black is with me today. She is the founder and CEO and the best-selling author of the book that we are talking about today. So welcome, Heather.
Thank you, Shellen. Lovely to be here. And we're excited to cover chapter K today, which is all about KPIs and how you measure the success of your Salesforce project.
Exactly. Well, why don't we just get right to the point and really what are KPIs? I think people throw that around and many of us have heard it, but not everyone actually knows what that means.
Yeah, so KPI stands for Key Performance Indicator. I think they're really valuable to have as part of a business case for a Salesforce project, because I've gone into rescue Salesforce implementations where they've spent £2 million on a Salesforce project and they didn't even know the business benefits they got out of it and were going to pan it. And so the reality is, regardless of how much money you can spend, I've worked on tiny, small non-profit projects as well, where they've £10,000 is a lot of money to them, but they really want to understand the business value that they're going to get out of it. How is it going to help them improve their organization, improve their profitability? And we'll talk about the different KPIs as we go through our chat today. But that helps them justify the investment in the technology, the investment in you and your salary as a Salesforce professional, because all of that cost, whether it's product or people or time or resource to set up and manage a system, there has to be a benefit to the organization, or else they're not going to pay it. And equally, if you want to not only get them invested in the start of the project, but if you're working in an organization and you want your career progression and you want a salary increase, you need to demonstrate to them the value that you are delivering to that organization that pays for your salary and your increase in promotion. So it's in your best interest in some ways to really know the value that Salesforce and all the work that goes into Salesforce is creating for the organization. To really, one, make it a system that people are going to retain and secure and not bin, and two, that they're going to grow the Salesforce team and keep investing in it. And that has to be front and center of your mind as a Salesforce professional, that you help them understand what the business KPIs are and they see the business value.
I'm so glad you mentioned that. I had it much more in mind of the client, but I know so often our community is really looking to find their way into new opportunities, get those promotions and raises, and so often struggle with those really tangible impacts and results to put on their LinkedIn profile or their resume. And that's just such a perfect way to do that. So how do you go about setting the appropriate KPIs?
So the way that I positioned it with clients is that quite often they don't understand the benefits that they can get. So the way that I've always done it is I would put a suite of KPIs on the table for them to assess. Now, in the book, I cover 15 key KPIs that you could look at. Obviously, that's not non-exhaustive, but what it does is give them a flavor and they're like, oh yeah, okay, we didn't think about that. So the 15 KPIs cover 5 key areas. You've got customer service, stakeholder engagement, efficiency, business intelligence, and financial sustainability. And under each of those, I've got 3 KPIs. If I look at one example, like stakeholder engagement, you've got improved engagement rates. So how would we assess that they've had improved engagement rates? That's the type of question you're going to have. If they're saying to you, we want to see increased engagement of our audience, you'd look at that and say, well, okay, how would we measure what your engagement level is now? What are we going to look at to get the baseline information? So you want to understand, what they might have no way of measuring it, which might be your baseline, or they might have a way of measuring it that gives you a baseline. And then when you've suggested a possible solution, so for example, if you are suggesting introducing an e-marketing solution like Pardot, you might then have a better way of measuring engagement because you've got Pardot scores, for example, as part of the solution, and then you're able to see how engaged somebody is. So that one will give them visibility straight away, But two, you can then start to see if people are being more engaged through the way that you're sending emails or SMSs or whatever it is that you're looking to engage people with. So you want to be setting SMART targets with people, which is specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time framed. And to agree with that, realistic and time framed, and everybody's agreeing on, okay, what does a reasonable increase look like? So one of the nonprofits we worked with when I was running the consultancy, we implemented an email marketing solution for them because they'd never had one. And they wanted to reach out to all of the contacts on their database to increase donations. And actually, through having an email marketing solution and then being able to email people, they actually increased all of their online donations significantly through just having a mechanism, right, which they'd never had before.
Right.
And so you can really make quite a fantastic difference by giving people tools that they've never had. But what you need to do is understand their current baseline, put in then obviously the technology that's going to improve it, and then set like a target for what that would look like. Now, if they've increased their donations, and that's given them another revenue stream of maybe, who knows, £100,000 a year, but they've only spent £10,000 on the implementation, then that's a pretty good return. So you've got to look at what that return investment is going to be. So you do need to cost out what the cost is of implementing that solution in both the product and the time that's taken, which is why I also say to people is when you go in and implement a solution, you're used to going in with a proposal around time and budget of resource to implement. But equally, when you're in a job and once you're working as maybe an in-house Salesforce team, you equally need to measure the amount of time you are spending on solutions, because otherwise you can't look at the return on investment from what you are doing. Because for every piece of work that you are doing for an organization, you are investing a certain amount of time and energy. And from that, there's going to be an output from it. There will be a business value generated, whether it's around financial sustainability, business intelligence, efficiency, customer service, or stakeholder engagement. Typically, it will fall into one of those 5 brackets. And so that's your trailblazer story. For every piece of work that you are doing, you want to go through that process and have like this baseline, the targets, key measurables. And as I mentioned before, is quite often a client won't have necessarily the knowledge or the understanding to define KPIs of their own accord, which is why it's useful to give them a selection. Now I have 15 in my book, but I actually have about 100 KPIs that I share as part of the consultancy skills course. We go into much more granular detail and look at all the KPIs you can have for Sales Cloud, Marketing Cloud, Service Cloud, all those different nuances. Because the more information and suggestions you can make to people, the more they go, oh my God, yeah, I never really thought about that. That's a really great idea. So you want to help them squeeze as much value out of this solution as possible. And so by suggesting KPIs to them and having like a whole platter of these things makes them suddenly realize and go, oh yeah, actually, you're right. And you're presenting it to them. So it's really, really important to kind of advise them, support them, and get this granular reporting process, and then have all the dashboards in Salesforce set up that show all of the value that's been created from them.
I always look back to my very first Salesforce experience of being on a leadership team where we, evaluated options, selected Salesforce, and went through that process. And this is sort of another example of what wasn't in place. And I think back to so many of our meetings, and it immediately got into discussions about what wasn't going well and things that people wanted, instead of really focusing on here's the KPIs, here's the outcomes, here's the return on this investment, and just bringing everyone's attention back to the progress that had been made or where we needed to go. I always love these conversations on Tuesdays. I learned so much. What do you, in terms of mistakes that you see people make with this, with KPIs, what advice do you have about what to avoid for someone who is in consulting and wants to really implement this in a more strategic way? What are some missteps that people could avoid?
So you're only going to realize these KPIs if everybody's bought into them and user adoption is high. So one of the mistakes might be to set these big goals at the beginning, the senior management team around the table, but then they're not investing in the training and the user adoption and the buy-in of the team, and the team don't understand it. So we talk a lot about change management, one in the book, but two, there's a whole module in my consultancy skills course, because you have to enthuse, empower, and engage people. I talk about the 3 E's to get their buy-in, and they firstly need to understand the business value that is meant to be created through this. They need to see and feel that it's benefiting them personally as well as a team and as a business, and that people are bought into the technology and are using it, because only if that happens are those KPIs going to be realized. And what happens quite often is people can spend a lot of money on the budget around the product and the upfront build, but then the training budget is squeezed to practically nothing. But if the team aren't trained on it properly, aren't onboarded onto it properly, then all of this can go by the wayside. So it's so important to get all of that, to make sure you've got the full journey through, that training and embedding it with the team is, equally weighted as much as the build work.
Yeah. Oh, such important advice. Absolutely. Are there any other elements of KPIs that, when you think about, I know what you have the 15 in the book, and you have, go deeper dive into the consultancy course. Any other insight into how you approach that in the course, and perhaps a little bit more about, just if somebody is joining that isn't familiar with the book, of the foundation of your book and then the consultancy course. And I have added the link if somebody wants to go ahead and purchase their copy of the book. It's such a valuable resource. And then if they're curious about really elevating their consultancy career or pivoting into a consultancy career, the link to the consultancy course. And there's a way to just book a call with Lynn, who's really an expert at explaining it and talking through your personal situation. But maybe you can just share a little insight into the book and the course itself, and then specifically maybe a little more about what the course dives into around KPIs.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I think it's about going in and being a Salesforce consultant is really about people put their trust in you. And I always felt from day dot that you're almost going in as like the management consultant. I think a Salesforce consultant is really a management consultant, but you're implementing technology as part of that journey. I've walked into rooms in the early stages of my career, and you sort of say, right, what are the KPIs you're measuring and what's important to you? And they sort of look at you a bit blankly, or I know some of my other team members have perhaps, some people have felt quite defensive to that, because like, oh, well, I don't know. And, it creates a bit of an awkward atmosphere. So I created sort of all these documentation, sort of a brief really, that I take clients through and put on the table, like, right, which of these processes are relevant to you? Which of these KPIs are relevant for you? Is there any others that are important? And what I found then is people go, oh yeah, tick, 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 tick. These ones are really useful. So what I've wanted to do with the book, and equally with the course, is just equip people with all the tools and templates you need to go into a project with, which then gives you the armory, if you like, to go into your client and say, right, answer all these questions for me. These are all the questions I need to know. Let's talk through them. These are all the range of KPIs that could be relevant for you. Which ones are relevant? Are there any others that we need to add? And that just creates a really safe space for everybody, because it means that you're not missing anything. It means that you're not, you're shaping and sort of advising people. They trust you because you're looking really professional with a suite of tools and templates. And so you're not making it up as you go along. It creates that safety net. And that's why as a consultancy, 65 or 66% of our work was repeat customers. and referrals, because they felt that they had a very formulaic process. It was standardized, but not standardized in that it was you were just sort of delivering, this is it and this is what you're going to get, but it created a template to have that business analysis conversation from. So the book is really there for you, sort of, as I say, it's 40,000 words, but the light touch of like, these are all the things you need to think about. And the course goes to that next level down of all the questions you need to ask if you're doing business analysis, all the tools and templates you need to think about with change management, and how you sort of make it all happen. It equips you with like the core skills to do it. And that's the best way to, as I say, the book is about how to be a super Salesforce consultant. That's what super looks like. Going in and guiding everybody, and you're giving them the foundation to have a really proper conversation. Nobody's making it up, in their minds. So yes, we can absolutely support you if you don't know what questions to ask, you don't know what KPIs are relevant. The book certainly sort of sets you off in the right direction. If you want more deeper dive, then the course is there for you. And we've had quite a lot of people come through who've read the book who want to then do the course. Our next consultancy skills course is starting in April, after Easter. So now's a great time to have a chat about it if you're thinking about it.
Perfect. I know, just in my role with Supermoms, talking to people who were evaluating the course and who were currently consultants. So it's such a rich environment of people that are pivoting in and they don't have as much experience, to people who are very experienced. And it's a little surprising how many consultancies had somebody like you, right, that started her business, and you're building your business and getting clients and delivering work, but not necessarily putting all the framework and the templates and the structure around. And so having these more junior consultants coming in and kind of having to learn the hard way, and just the relief and the confidence of having tools to bring to meetings, and really bringing that structure and the value that they could bring into meetings was really high and immediate, because you just had quick access to that type of materials and learning it quickly. So that was something really interesting. And I think the other piece is organizations starting to understand that they're busy delivering, but they really do need to support their team, and being able to bring people into a structured program like the consultancy skills course, where they don't have to do that, but they can have a trusted partner to put their consultants or new consultants through a framework that's really proven is something that more organizations are really recognizing the value of. And I think it's quite a value to be able to do it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. We've had really fantastic feedback from leaders of consultancies that their staff have been through the program. They've seen the real results from it, and it was lovely when I was at the App Exchange Live event last week, because a chap ran up to me who started his own consultancy, and he's like, "I've bought all my staff your book," and they're reading it now, and he's asking me, my feedback and thoughts around growing a consultancy and running it. And that's it. You have to, the best consultancies and the ones that will scale is where they've got a formula of how they work, and there's a standardized approach to running things, because otherwise everybody's going to do it in their own way, in an embryonic way, and there's no consistency. What does the brand actually stand for? So yes, it's been lovely hearing the feedback, certainly from that point of view.
Excellent. Well, once again, quick session, lots of value, and we will be back next week, same time, same place, and we will be on L of the A to Z guide for the become a super Salesforce consultant. So thank you, Heather. It was great.
We will. Thank you, everyone. Look forward to seeing you next week. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.